How you doing, folks? Just Graham Keith here, and welcome to the Great Wake Up. Yet another video for you. Now, in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about money. Money, the thing on everyone's lips, and with the cost of living crisis going on, it's really, really important that we dive deep into this. But the cost of living is another topic, and I do have a video on the cost of living that will pop up on a little pop-up in the screen if you want to go and watch that. But before you do, let's dive into this. Now, money, we've never been taught really, have we? When we think about it, what money is, we've never been really educated on it at school. We've never really had the time to stop and investigate about what money really is either. And I'm here to tell you yet more, not bad news, but actually it's quite good news. It depends how you look at it. But money itself is literally a valueless commodity backed by nothing, printed from nothing essentially. And the way it works is as follows. So all of the gold which used to back the currency or the money, let me just hold this camera this way. So the money used to be backed by gold. All the gold was done by the top banking families. They own it all, they've taken it all, they've squandered it all, and they've hoarded it all. And essentially, paraphrasing and cut a long story short, money is no longer backed by anything. It's called fiat currency. Now, it used to be called, essentially being backed by gold. It had value, it had substance, it had worth. But since they've done all the gold, and since it's now called fiat, which essentially translates to light, which means, light, energy. But we're not going to go down spiritual routes, we're going to go down real routes, because the spiritual movement's been hijacked as well. So money is basically valueless commodity backed by nothing, and it's also a promissory note. Now, you take any note in your wallet and read it. On the top line in small print, it says, "I promise to pay the bearer." This is if you're in the UK. I promise to pay the bearer the sum of 10, 20, 50 pounds, whatever it is, on the notes. So money is an IOU. It's backed by nothing. And the reason this is the case is because all the gold was done, all the top elite bankers knew this, and they thought, well, what are we going to do now? We've got all the wealth. How are we going to generate more wealth? And how are we going to control the population to bring about our agenda? Because once you have all the money, you've got all the control. And once you've got all the control, then you can make the plan to control the population, because you've got everything else. You don't need anything else. You don't need to work because you've got all the money. So these people in elitist positions, I call them parasites, by the way, because that's what they are. They literally have collateralized or turned the citizens, which is probably not the best choice of word, but the people of each individual country, they are the collateral. Yes, I'll say it again, they're the collateral. So they've turned all of us, through our birth certificate, into collateral for the debt from the Bank of England in the UK's case, or the bank, wherever it is in your country. All of the citizens, via their birth certificate, have been turned into collateral for the debt to pay off the, non-existent interest, because money has no value, and not only non-existent interest on the world debt, but essentially they've turned all of the people into slaves. Because if the money is worth nothing anyway, and then they've collateralized you as the currency, and then you go to work, earn your money in inverted commas, and they just tax you to the hilt, tax on income tax, tax on VAT, national insurance, tax upon the tax you've already been taxed upon, etc., 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 and it goes on and on. So essentially you are what is called a voluntary slave. So money is worthless, backed by nothing, and then they turn you into a bond to set off the debt for the world banks, which can never ever be repaid because there's not enough money. There is none, but there's not enough money in circulation to cover that debt. Why have they done it like this? So that you are a slave, Neo. Essentially, you are a slave. You are a battery. That's why they put you in a cell when you go to the police station, because you're a battery. Okay? So essentially, the burning question is, why do people believe in money? Well, because they've never been taught anything about it. They've never been taught what it is. They've never been taught where it comes from. They've never been taught anything. Then we have these economists. They know absolutely nothing about money because they, one, believe it's real, which it isn't. Two, they believe it's backed by something, which it isn't, because it's called fiat currency. And three, they have an inflated ego because of their position, which means they're talking out their ass, basically, as most people in positions of alleged authority do. Because they're all unconscious, they're all living in their ego, and they all believe that they have superiority, when in fact they have nothing. Because they don't know the first thing about what they're talking about, which is really, really quite sad, but that's the state of the world we live in. So this is why you literally have to work for, say, you know, from the age of 18 to 65, 67, or even later in the UK to get your pension. But money is just a belief. If it doesn't hold any value and it's backed by nothing and it's an IOU, a promissory note that you can't pay for anything with because it's an IOU. An IOU is a promise to pay. So it's a payment for something in the future. In the future. So whenever you buy something, you're buying it with an IOU. Do you see where I'm going with this? So there is no means with which to pay anything. Crazy, right? So we're all economic debt slaves. We're all economic debt slaves, which are subordinate and codependent on narcissistic psychopaths who run the banking industry, the governments, and the politicians. Why is this? Because this is how the world really works. A government has to ask permission to print money from the Bank of England discount window. Okay, now essentially, they will, well, from the Treasury, they have to ask permission to print the money. And in return for that money, the bankers want things such as, say, I don't know, speed cameras. And then they'll say to the government, well, how much do you think you'll generate from the speed cameras? They might say 4 million per annum. So the bankers will then print, that, say 8 million, whatever they need. And they know that they'll put the speed cameras up and generate the revenue to get it back. But what does this mean for the population? Well, it means for the population that they've just been enslaved with yet more legislation, not laws, but similar to laws, legislation, in order for the government to recoup the loan and the interest on that loan from the bankers, from the Treasury. So it's all a game of manipulation, where in order for the governments to get the money, they need to introduce more and more draconian measures to suppress the population who are economic debt slaves or batteries to a belief that has no value, a monetary note that has no value, that cannot pay for anything and cannot, basically discharge debts. So the whole game, the whole money game is a lie. Now, as a man like myself, I was offered $7.5 million in 2013 for psychological services and spiritual services, essentially being like Morpheus from the Matrix. And this is what I do on a day-to-day. Because everything I'm teaching, I live by. Everything I've shared in these videos, I live by. And here's the good news. You are a multi-millionaire now. You've never ever really needed to work as such because you have a trust. Okay, you cannot access this trust directly, but your legal name is a trust because there is no money with which to pay anything. There is no money. There is no money. You must understand this. So what they did was they projected at your birth how much money you'd be able to generate to repay the interest on the world loan, the world debt. And then they gave a percentage of that into a trust account. And the reason that they did that is so if you ever worked out the system, you could discharge your debts for free. So you've never ever needed to work. Let's look at mortgages, which essentially means mort, from the root word mortality, which is death. Engage in Latin, I believe it's Latin, or it might be Hebrew. From the top of my head, it's one of the two, but it means grip. So mortgage means death grip. You couldn't make it up, but they did. So if you've got a mortgage, what essentially has happened is you've gone into the mortgage broker asking for a mortgage to buy a house, for example, £100,000. You go in, you say, yeah, I'd like to buy a house, £100,000, I need a mortgage, please. They'll say, okay, sign this application, Mr. Smith, your false, fictitious name. And you'll go, okay, and you'll sign it and they'll say, thank you very much. What they'll do then is they'll take it away for a couple of minutes and say, we're just going to run through your application, see if you qualify. What they're really doing is they're dipping into your trust right there and then. And they give you a piece of paper which you have to sign before you receive your mortgage money, your loan. Why? Because they've dipped into your trust and you've signed to give them access to that trust, and that signature creates currency, money. This is how powerful you really are. Every time you sign anything, you are literally creating a promissory note, which the mortgage company then put in a vault and securitize. Wow. So essentially you've borrowed 100 grand, which you've created through your signature. And then the mortgage company have that payment for the 400 grand that you've asked to borrow. But then they give you back the piece of paper saying, congratulations, Mr. Smith, you've qualified for your mortgage. We can now accept you. Here are the terms. You must repay £300,000. You've borrowed 100,000, but you must repay 300,000 over 25 years at, say, 10% interest, whatever it is. And you go, yes, I've got my mortgage, fantastic. But nothing could be further from the truth, because you've just literally created the funds. You've literally settled the account and the debt is paid. The house is paid for right there and then. Right there and then. It's done. The whole game is a lie. It's a fraud. It's bullshit. And this is why they get you. If you remember the thumbnail on this video, as a slave on a hamster wheel, running around doing 8 to 10 hour days, 60 hours a week for 50 or 55 plus years, working for money, in inverted commas, which has no value, which is backed by nothing. And you are already essentially a multimillionaire from your trust. Your legal name is that trust, which is why they get you to represent it. Well, they get you to believe that you are that name, which is fraud, because you're not. You're a living man. That trust is a corporation, and everything in this world is a corporation, because a corporation can only do business with a corporation, which is why they had to turn you into a corporation through your birth certificate when you were born. And then they tricked you into believing you were that name, like at school, when they called your name in the register. Yes, miss, you'd put your hand up, or yes, sir, you'd put your hand up. And that's where the bond with you and that name came alive, and you believed you were that name. Crazy, right? So don't stress about money. It's all bullshit. It's all lies. It's all fraud. It's all fake and it's all against you. Because why? Because you are absolutely powerful beyond belief. And your signature can discharge any debt. Any debt. Any debt. Your mortgage is paid for. Full stop. Everything you've ever done, your loans for cars, for houses, for home improvements, for universities, for colleges, whatever it might be, it's all already funded because it's coming from you. It's coming from your trust because you are what is called the creditor. And all the governments have done is tricked you into becoming the debtor when you're actually the beneficiary of a trust holding millions and millions of dollars. So don't stress about the cost of living. Don't stress about money. Don't stress about anything because it's all a lie. Everything is a lie. Everything. Your name, where you live, the country you live in, which is a company, not a country. The way you have a car, the way you operate and own a house, the way you pay things. Like just say your council tax bill, if you're in the UK, or if you're in America, it might be similar, but in the UK, we have a bill called council tax, which is for public services, police, fire, roads, things like that. Again, the whole thing is fraud because it's directed to a legal name, which you're not. And essentially, you can pay it all off by endorsing and settling the account. So if you get a bill, you can literally not use like real money to pay the bill because that's what they've trained you to do. So you have to keep going to work. But you can pay that council tax bill by writing on the bill with a pen. Yeah, seriously, you really can pay bills with no money at all because there is no money with which to pay bills. It's all in the definitions and it's all found in UK legislation. I'll say that again because my heater creaked and it'll probably do it again, so I do apologise. But you look on the Bills of Exchange Act, okay, UK legislation, and you will see everything that I'm talking about right there. They have to give you remedy because they know they're defrauding you. And then they'll just blame you for it because at the end of the day, it's apparently illegal to use a legal name, even though that legal name is fraudulent from the outset and you were never told. It's complete nonsense. The whole thing is complete nonsense and it's all fraud. So as long as you know how to beat them at their own game by using the Bills of Exchange Act, which is applicable to all companies, then happy days. Now, in the Bills of Exchange Act, it says essentially that corporations can use bills of exchange to discharge debts. It says that. And if you go to Companies House and look up the company in question who you're dealing with, say it's your Wi-Fi provider, then go on Companies House, put them in, and then go to Filing History and Incorporation document. Scroll down that document and you'll see to make, use, draw, accept, blah, 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 bills of exchange. And a bill of exchange is the same as money, because money, what we believe is money, is a promissory note, but it's bill of exchange. And endorsing a council tax bill or a Wi-Fi bill or any bill is also a bill of exchange because you're exchanging the value by discharging the debt. So that you're zeroing the account, you're performing, which means payment. Payment doesn't mean to give money over, it means to perform, which means to settle an account. It's all in trickery, it's all in language, it's all in deceit. Everything you've ever been taught about money is a lie. So I'm going to leave you with that food for thought. If you do want first-hand teaching from me live, one-to-one, then please go to my website in the description and put your email address in once you arrive on my website. Now, the program is currently at full capacity, but put your email in and I'll give you some extra special gifts when the doors reopen, and I'll teach you how to do all this stuff step by step by step. It's so simple, it'll blow your socks off. and it's your freedom. And isn't your freedom worth that? Of course it is. So you know what to do. But this is why they've trained you the way they have, to go to school, to get a job, to slave away. Because they know it's all BS. They know it's all fraud against you. You means basically the one who will pay. That's what it means. The one who will pay. So when you see you on your contracts, your loan agreements, your bank documents, it means you're the one that will pay. But payment doesn't mean giving money over, giving, 5, 10, 20, 50 over. Payment means performance, and performance means to settle an account. And to settle an account means to zero out an alleged balance of a debt. And they just never told you how it's really done. So I've been Graham Keith for The Great Wake Up. Thanks for watching. Please, if you want to, if you feel the need, and if you could help and support the channel because it is new and wants to grow, please consider giving us a like or subscribe or just share the channel. It's either way, it's up to you. But we would prefer if you've subscribed so you don't miss the next video, which will be coming really soon. But until then, thanks for watching and have a great day.